partner in the EIEIO program. Prior to joining MMC, Chad worked for a Fortune 500 company where his client base included companies from the energy, technology, and automotive sectors. Chad graduated from the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business in 2008 with a BA in Business Administration. A BA in BA. All right, Chad, take it away.
Thank you, Jeff, and hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. We're very happy you could be here, and we have so many show up. Obviously, it's always tough in the middle of summer, especially mid-July is a tough time for anyone to get near a computer with everything else going on in the fields, or whether it's training or others. So very happy you could be here. For those that don't know or are new to these types of outreach efforts, this is part of the BFRDP EIEIO project, which stands for Evaluating and Improving Education Instruments and Outreach, specifically aimed at beginning farmers. And this is a grant provided by USDA that is heading towards the end of its second year of a 3-year grant life. So just to give you a little bit of a project outline again for those that may be wondering exactly how this BFRDP grant works compared to others, is there's the project director, Gary Madison, out of Farm Credit Council, and his office is in D.C., along with the Wallace Center, specifically John Fisk, project director, and Jeff Farman, who you just heard from, who's a project associate, are the main two, I guess, project management or project organizer management team on the project. Matching up with them is Morse Marketing Connections, which is my company, and Marty Gerenser, helping to manage and I guess outline some of the goals and different ideals of the project in order to find results. Working off of that is the facilitator team, which is all focused in the Southeast, which is Alan Williams, Andrew Williams, Jim Lukens, and Tom Welsh, who all have a wealth of expertise and a number of years in the industry. Also kind of working with the facilitator team, but also focusing on kind of a jack-of-all-trades role is Joe Collin of Origins LLC, and he's based out of Michigan. But so that's kind of the roster in a quick and dirty form as possible. But the best way that we've been able to reach those beginning farmer trainers in the Southeast is by having those facilitators on the ground and having assigned trainers to them and keeping in contact, doing outreach efforts such as this, as well as holding workshops, which we've held at Southern Sauk the past 2 years in Little Rock, Arkansas, as well as we held one at the Farm Credit offices in Statesville, North Carolina this past October. So it's more financial literacy training as well as business and budget planning with beginning farmer trainers. And so that is in a nutshell kind of these outreach efforts as they've been ongoing. We've also have developed this community of practice, which is really, as you can see, expanded across the United States, not just in the Southeast. And we've each of these bubbles or darts, or I guess I should say thumbtacks, have been picked up as part of the COP to stay on our mailing list, and are a tight-knit group of our community of practice that get all of these outreach efforts as well as monthly newsletters, and that's really who we're trying to focus on, as well as match facilitators up to be a one-on-one resource for them. As I mentioned before, our funding support comes through USDA and specifically NIFA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, as well as the starttofarm.gov website that has been started, and much of our information is located there courtesy of the USDA. With that said, we will move into our esteemed speaker today and presenter, Kim Newolny of Virginia Tech. For quick information on her, Kim is an assistant professor and extension specialist in the Department of Agriculture and Extension Education. Kim joined the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences in fall 2009. She teaches graduate and undergraduate courses and fulfills extension research responsibilities in CALS. Kim's scholarship is centered on the role adult and community education plays in addressing historical and emerging issues in agricultural and community development practice. Her work follows 3 related threads of inquiry: community-based education for beginning farmer training and program development, civic engagement experiences and public purposes of community-based participatory research, and social change throughout such adult learning experiences as experiential, transformative, and sociocultural learning theory. Major topics of interest include whole farm program planning for new entry farmers, community food security, and farm-to-school program development. As her primary extension program, Kim serves as director of the Virginia Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coalition program. Under the umbrella of a statewide coalition, this program is a collaboration of 26 agricultural-based organizations, agencies, and farm businesses throughout Virginia. The Virginia Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coalition program aims to improve opportunities for beginning farmers and ranchers to establish and sustain viable agricultural operations through development and enhancement of whole farm planning programs, online resources, social networking, and farmer mentoring. What is unique to this extension program is the CPPR approach that drives the work. This approach recognizes unique strengths that each stakeholder brings to the program, which helps build sustainable partnerships and services for Virginia's next generation of producers and growers. Kim teaches several adult agricultural education community development courses within AEE. She is also the lead instructor of the Introduction to Civic Agriculture course, ALS 2204, which belongs to the Civic Agricultural Food Systems minor in CLS. With all that said, I will now hand the controls over to Kim, who will now get in much more detail of those programs she's involved with as it specifically relates to BFRDP programs.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Chad. That was a very generous introduction. Hopefully everyone could stick with us. Well, again, thank you for this opportunity to speak about the Virginia Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coalition program. I'm very happy to do this, and just wanted to start off by saying this really is a collaborative effort, and so the work I'm about to share and talk about really is a reflection of many people's hard work and consideration across Virginia. So it's a real pleasure to work with all the partners we have, and of course all of the farmers that we work with and on behalf of. So I guess with that, I wanted to really begin by just acknowledging the title, and I think it really is our focus here is to talk about how our program does focus on building capacity and partnership development, and we do that in a particular way, and that means we focus on working with service providers as well as directly with beginning farmers. And so that's perhaps what makes our program our program. It's a definitely statewide effort, and we have regional and local opportunities. So I will speak to each of those as they actually relate to our programming aims. And what I'm hoping to do is end here with some lessons learned and strategies for the future. And we are actually in a really wonderful transition period, and I'm really excited, yet always, nervous to see what happens next. But again, this has been a real pleasure of a program, and looking forward to see what lies ahead. So with that, I think Chad did a nice job of already kind of orientating to us what the overall goal or the overall aim of the program is, and it's stated here. I don't necessarily think I want to go state that over for you all, but in a nutshell, we really are trying to work with beginning farmers and service providers through the development and enhancement of whole farm planning programs, and I'm going to talk about what that means for us, and then also through supportive online resources and online networking opportunities for farmers and service providers. And we also are developing farmer mentoring networks. So we have a couple networks of mentors that are in Virginia here, and I'll talk about that. So I'm going to move forward here. I want to recognize the United States Department of Agriculture. We were the recipient of a 2010 Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program grant that actually is ending in the end of August. August 31st is our final date, and we have been working for 3 years together, and we are very pleased to have this opportunity, and I just wanted to just note the funding aim here as what it was in 2010, which is very similar to what it looks like in subsequent requests for proposals. But it's exciting to work towards this programming and continue to support the USDA's development of this program, hopefully in the future. One question that I'm sure a lot of us who work in this area get, and I think it's a really great question, is what's a beginning farmer, and why do beginning farmers or ranchers have a specific definition? And I always like to begin here because our program has an answer to that, and I'm sure all of yours do too. And this is the definition that's provided by the USDA, and it says here, those who have operated a farm or ranch for 10 years or less, either as a sole operator or with others who have operated a farm or ranch for 10 years or less. And while that's really helpful, I think it's really important to have a benchmark. This is helping the larger network and communities of folks to realize that there is a new entry process that we have to be mindful of, and with that there are resources and programming opportunities that are specifically designed for folks who fall under this definition. And so that's really important from a practical and a policy level, and that's really nice. And I think what's also important is to think about beginning farmers and ranchers and perhaps in a little more detailed way, and that's what we're trying to do in our program. And this is really tipping our hats to work that's been done previously. Shields and Descartes, coming out of the New England Small Farm Institute several years back with their programming, is to recognize a series or a pathway to startup. And that's what we do in our program. I'm trying to really recognize a continuum of beginning farmers based on their level of experience as farmers, growers, ranchers, producers. And that's really key, I think, for all of us to think about, because we do have specific startup needs based on where you are in this trajectory. And I don't think it's necessarily a trajectory that's like one end to the next, like left to right. I think it's perhaps a little bit more nuanced, but as you can see here, our program is definitely recognizes the, if you will, the explorer farmer or the prospective farmer, those who really haven't started farming but really are interested and want to get involved. And I would imagine this is maybe true for a lot of folks out there, is that this is a category or a group of farmers who it's pretty common. It's pretty common to bump up against these folks who really need that support to begin farming, and that requires a whole level of, if you will, agricultural literacy and networking that may look different to us as service providers and farmers than those who perhaps are down in the establishing farmer category, those who actually have been farming, but they have a whole slew of expansion and diversification strategies they're working with, and their risks are different. So I think it's really important to kind of recognize this pathway. And importantly is this last category of transitioning or heritage farmers. And this is really, and I'm sure a lot of programs out there, are addressing this as well. But I know in Virginia, it's really important for us to think about that farm families or people who actually are trying to transition from one farm to the next. Either it's intergenerational, or perhaps it's not even, within a family situation. It's where people are trying to transition the farmland or farm business to someone who's interested. And it's really key to think about their specific succession planning needs or transition planning needs. And so we definitely have been trying to talk about that through our curriculum, as well as some ongoing efforts to support transitioning farmers. So I just wanted to take a moment here to recognize that and know that we are open. Our programming is really oriented towards the expansion of these experiences, and that also specifically includes people who come from different perspectives of farming and different, we are very specific on, we have an inclusive aim, folks who are coming from all over the state, and people who are perhaps immigrant farmers who are new to Virginia. We have a large percentage of women who are starting to be involved in our programs. We had over 50% of our farmer participants in year 2 were women, and clearly we have a care and concern to address limited resource and minority farmers. So we have a variety of ways in which we address those very important audiences. So as I speak to our programming, I just wanted you to have that in the back of your mind, because we have a lot of moving parts, and all those parts are trying to address the inclusivity of farmers and farming experiences. So our program, was launched in 2010, and at the heart of our work truly is this coalition building process. And if you will, this is our very first project aim. When we got funded, we pulled people together in the beginning, actually, with a proposal, and the goal was to grow the coalition. And the idea here is that we really wanted to work with a variety of different stakeholders who are currently working in Virginia to support beginning farmers in a variety of ways, through resources, through training, through networking, and etc. So it was really important to recognize that work already was here. We're not starting from scratch, but to really think about ways to have a synergy of operation, or to fill resource gaps, and to be more resource sharing, less resource competitive. And I think the culture was really ripe for that. I think a lot of folks, they still want to see that collaboration continue. And so this sort of gives you a picture of sort of the stakeholder groups, and I'll give you some more detail about that. But the stakeholder groups, we cover a variety of different non-governmental organizations working in partnership with Virginia Tech and Virginia State University, our sister land-grant university. So clearly Virginia Cooperative Extension is, if you will, the kind of the backbone to the synergy of the coalition. And we have our several local, state, and federal governmental agencies, which we're very happy to see that partnership. And we have so many really dedicated and hardworking farmers themselves, who farm businesses, and farmers who are farmer educators and organizations who are participating in the coalition. So this is really where I think the work takes place. Here is just an acronymed, and I apologize for the acronym. We do have a full list of the organization's names, but I like this slide because it really shows we are a little circle, and we come together. Our aim here is to really work on service provider needs, to work on networking, capacity building, and really training with the curriculum that we collaboratively developed, which I'll talk about in a moment here. So this represents who we are, and I'm not going to really go into depth with anybody in particular, but I will have a slide in the end that shows the full list of our stakeholder groups. So, but we have met. We first started meeting the first year every quarter, and now we're meeting every 3 months. And we have an August meeting coming up, and we're going to be having a pretty big culminating meeting to recognize the 30 years of our programming and to continue planning for the future. So we have regional opportunities for our folks to come together, and that's been personally, I really enjoy this part. I think it's really important to continue to work with each other across the agricultural table, and to show how we all really do have so much more in common than not. And it's been, I think, pretty evident that that is true, and people want to work together to support beginning farmers. So how we do this is sort of a little bit of an academic approach to, or the academic explanation to how this works. We really follow a community-based participatory, or a community-based participatory research approach, which really is about developing equity in the partnerships to conduct either research or program development and evaluation. So that essentially allows us through working groups and democratic, decision making within the working groups and the committees to move forward and to implement our programming as a coalition. So the coalition is not just, if you will, it's not just a actual entity or just a model. It's an actual process. And so without the coalition, I don't think any of the work that we've done would probably look the same as it does today. Here's just a quick little snapshot of several of our partners, and over the course of the last 3 years, different coalition meetings. And I always just love these photos. There is so many more to share, and we have actually a online slideshow on our website to see more photos if you care to do that. So our second major programming effort was to develop whole farm planning curriculum. And the whole farm planning curriculum really was the idea to collaboratively develop through our coalition. We networked together for about 1 year's time and then worked together to create different modules that fall under the whole farm planning framework. And this happened, and this took place. And actually, that first year, we worked sort of in dual aim to develop the network and the coalition, and then to create specific writing groups on each of these specific areas. And that did happen. So you'll see the 5 modules here. And we had a committee of many individuals who I want to take the moment to recognize. And if I have forgotten anybody, my apologies. This is a very vibrant group who really put their time into both writing, reviewing, and revision of the whole farm planning curriculum. And there, of course, are other folks who've been involved in sort of the external review, as we are actually publishing our curriculum through Virginia Cooperative Extension through our peer review process. And so we're very excited for that to take place. So I just want to give you a snapshot of what we mean by whole farm planning. I know that word, that language means a lot of things to many people, and for us, that whole farm planning process is really to be an opportunity for new entry producers and growers to learn about not just the content areas, because that's really important, but if we can do anything, I really would love to see the emphasis on teaching the process of developing your farm and evaluating your farm holistically. So to do so means you have to be content rich. You have to know the business planning and financial management skills and resources. You have to know about the different production practices and best management practices that are accessible to you and your farm, and et cetera, et cetera. But what's really important is to help farmers enter into a sustainable and viable future by teaching them, with them, how to make planning decisions to be a whole farm. And I think a lot of us do that in different ways. And so we really use our first module, which I was just showing you there, the Introduction to Whole Farm Planning. We've taken on many resources, and we've been very mindful that our resources need to be public documents or basically free of charge documents that can be used over time. And these are of course, science-based, research-based documents that are extension-oriented, or a lot of them are USDA, or ATRA, SARE documents and program materials. So with that kind of approach, we've really been emphasizing a whole farm planning process through this synergy of setting goals, assessing your resources and preferences, assembling the plan, and monitoring. Now, again, this may not seem like that, this is not that new, and it's not. This is something that people have been doing for a while. But we really have put a lot of emphasis on a whole farm plan inventory, which I think is really key to show that your farm is a business, it is your home, it is a place of land resource, it is a place where your money is exchanged and working decisions are made. But how do you manage for that as a holistic entity? So what does that look like? And so with our whole farm planning, our introduction module, we really set the stage through this inventory process that helps people move into an action plan. And then following that, we'll have our subsequent modules that help people actually answer the questions and then continue to develop their whole farm plan. So I just wanted to go over these really quickly and to recognize that these are our actual modules. And the land acquisition and tenure module is, and before I go into that, these aren't necessarily in any specific order, and I'll explain that in a little bit about how our programs look. But we have 5 modules, and the intro module typically always comes first, as you might imagine, but these subsequent modules are utilized based on the specific needs of the group in which who register for a program. And I think that's really important. We're trying to create a continuum of opportunities for farmers and service providers to work with. And there's definitely a logic to the modules, but you will see how some can be emphasized in different ways over others. So with this module, we really do focus on trying to teach farmers about what is land tenure, what does it mean to have tenure, and what does it mean to then acquire land through either ownership of land or ownership of resources. So that kind of question of how do you buy land, do you lease land, what are your options, what are your alternatives? And that's a big part of that module. And then we have a part of that module that focuses on planning for transition. Now, some people think, well, wow, that's really, if as a new farmer, how do you plan for your transition? But my quick response is that if you don't start thinking about who is part of your farming experience now, if you don't know who's involved and what it could look like in 5, 10, 20 years down the road, your goals might not be necessarily on target. And as beginning farmers are perhaps, yes, we have lots of young farmers, and that's great. We want to support them. They have families, and we have farmers who are beginning farmers who are also perhaps not as young as other farmers, and they're starting off as a second or third career, and so their transition plans may look different than others. And so I do not think I think it's really important to start thinking about the transition issues as early as possible, and not just from land points of view, but the business transfer. So anyway, that's a huge topic, and with something that we are trying to address here in Virginia. We have a marketing module, which, as you might imagine, kind of talks about the basics of marketing, and market analysis, product establishment, and marketing channels. And so that's been used in a variety of different ways and through worksheets, and we've used some really good resources that have come from SARE as well as through ATRA and other sources. Our whole farm business management and planning module is, as you again might imagine, is focusing on the business plan as well as the financial management components to the whole farm plan. And that means looking at your resources and specific financial, your enterprise budgets, etc., that you all think would go into this area. So agricultural, economic literacy, and implementation is pretty key. And I think we have been really lucky that we've had some good resources to draw upon, again, for this module. Our final module is our production-oriented module, which is quite, if you will, big. We've had a lot of discussion around this one, and that we can't necessarily teach it all, and what we need to do is really provide a foundation and then provide the next step skills and knowledge areas where people need to focus on. So soil management is really important, and fundamental production practices, so people know which products you might be interested in growing or raising, and then we can connect you to the appropriate resources once you have a good sense of where you want to go with your enterprise. And so that module is the last one that we're finalizing right now. So this is really, this is the moment where you tilt your hat and say, thank you for all the hard work that's been done the process we took with our coalition was in the first year, we worked together to develop our curriculum, we worked together to create the coalition and grow it, and we had a call for proposals. And the USDA, I want to thank them for allowing us to do this, where we had money set aside in the grant to then put into different on-the-ground programs, and that meant putting out an actual call for proposal and having the coalition members respond to that based on their specific organizational needs, which meant they were in tune to the farmers they worked with, and then also ways to then enhance that outreach for those groups, which meant the groups came together in really, I think, really exciting ways. Some groups really developed collaborations to put the programming on, and others actually utilized the coalition's resources as a network after their program was first established. So that's been, I think, a sign of success with the actual coalition and how it's supposed to work. So I wanted to just recognize by just really quickly, I think it's really important, the teams here. And we work with Appalachian Sustainable Development, which is a non-governmental organization in far southwest Virginia. They've partnered with several extension offices. We work with Adamo Winery, which is actually a working winery. They grow grapes, and they actually produce wine, and they've been working with some new entry grape growers to start a business, and that's actually a growing enterprise here in Virginia. They've worked with Virginia Cooperative Extension through our agricultural research networks to help mentor and train those folks. So that's been a really neat opportunity. We have our Fauquier County Ag Development Office working with Virginia Cooperative Extension and the Fauquier Ed Farm, which is our Northern Piedmont Beginning Farmer Program, a really vibrant program that has been working with a variety of different folks for the last 2 years, and really excited to see their work take off. We also work with Grayson Land Care, which is in very far southwest in Grayson County, and they've been working with a handful of very young beginning farmers to train them through the whole farm planning process on the Blue Ridge Plateau, which is a geographical area in far southwest Virginia. We work with Sustain Floyd, which is another non-governmental organization who is trying to also develop a working model farm in Floyd County, and they put on their programming, and they've had a lot of interest to continue that as well based on the very large amount of folks interested in that program. And then the last two groups are the Virginia Association for Biological Farming. They have developed a farm school for beginners, and they put on their program in the central part of the state, and they partnered with a variety of different coalition members through their actual implementation process. And last but certainly not least is our Virginia Farm Bureau Young Farmers group working with the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. We have the Certified Farm Seeker program, which is a very innovative program trying to support the Virginia Farm Link program to match, we're trying to certify, quote, certify farm seekers with landowners to support that farmland transition process here in Virginia. So again, you can see the innovation just from my little brief description across all 7 of these programs that are used to really implement both their own organizational capacity needs, but using that through the whole farm planning process. And here's just a quick snapshot of those different programs where they're located with the red squares. The big square in the middle is actually representing the Certified Farm Seeker program, because they are primarily working through an online mechanism, but Stephanie Kitchen, who is one of the prime coordinators in the program, is actually working with the cohorts of groups across the state. But they're statewide, so I just kind of wanted to recognize that. That's why they're in the middle with a big square. The peach-colored square in the far southeast area is representing Virginia State University. VSU did not have a program launched in the beginning of the coalition, but they have a small farm outreach technical assistance program, and they are very interested and committed to putting on workshops and working with our mentors to promote whole farm planning in their programming that's in far southeast Virginia. So they're actually planning for post-grant programming. So I wanted to recognize that as well. Other components of our programming, I'll just kind of go through these pretty quickly, is we do support our online resources and learning opportunities are supportive. They're, if you will, auxiliary, but we have a website that houses all our information, so I do encourage you to visit us and to learn more about what we're doing by that website. And we have coalition member listservs, and we have beginning farmer listservs, and I actually probably needed to update those numbers, but we have over 400 beginning farmers on our listserv now. And we have a Facebook for social media. We have a YouTube channel for those of you into YouTube. We have actually gone out and interviewed beginning farmers across Virginia and edited those videos for the purpose of sharing their stories of farm startup. And we also have videotaped some of our coalition meetings, and we also have provided each of our whole farm planning teams with blogging cameras, little Sony blogging cameras that they can use in their programming, their face-to-face work, to kind of capture the experiences of the farmers who they work with. And we then have a team of folks here at Virginia Tech who can edit that work and get it up on our YouTube channel. So we have we're really kind of excited about our YouTube work and kind of into the social media of beginning farmer program development. We also have a blog that helps them communicate a variety of different, you know, land needs or, you know, advertisements and just issues that people want to write about, which has kind of been a nice opportunity for folks. And then we have a webinar series, which just wanted to recognize we too have a webinar. It's been a nice opportunity once a month, well, not every Wednesday, but once a month in our middle of the day on Wednesdays, we have a webinar that's actually highlighting a coalition organization. So we've had USDA's Farm Service Agency. We've had next week we actually have the NRCS who's going to be presenting. We've had Appalachian Sustainable Development talked about their work with risk management, and the idea here is to highlight what whole farm planning topics that each of our organizations are working with, and then to also share with our beginning farmers the incredible richness of our network. So these are the issues, these are the resources, these are the opportunities you as a beginning farmer need to plug into. And the way to do that is to not always be face-to-face, but to learn about that through these online opportunities. Excuse me, and we record those for viewing and listening later because obviously folks are busy and they can't always be online at the same time. So this is just recognizing our YouTube. Here's just a little, we have the Shannons who are Weathertop Farm in Floyd County, and they're one of our folks there. And I actually have a link there to Cushman's Farm up in the northern Piedmont area, talking about starting a new farm enterprise. So just wanted to highlight, again, these are the kind of online pieces that we work with. As again, these are supportive. They're not designed to be standalone necessarily, but we have found that our extension educators really like the YouTube channel to illustrate some of the issues that they face. Like, hey, here's what I've been talking about, and here's a farmer who actually said it. And so it's been really nice to hear that as ways to show those firsthand experiences of farmers in the classroom by our teams. And we have we're not done yet. We still have one. This is our last, if you will, objective that we've been working with, is our mentoring networks. We have really hardworking, fabulous people who are our farm mentor coordinators. From left to right on the screen, we have CJ Isbell, who's the guy holding his hands on his hips. We had Kelly Scott in the middle there, and then we have Jim Hillary on the right with the Virginia Tech hat. We really focus on networking, not necessarily matchmaking. We've recruited mentor farmers, and we have an application process for mentees. and we have over 33 mentors identified, and we've had over about a dozen matches made with mentees and mentors in 3 different regions. And we don't have we had 3 mentor networks, and one of our mentor coordinators has moved on to Virginia Cooperative Extension as an agent in one of the counties. So she's no longer providing mentoring coordination, but we've taken on responsibilities with our other mentor coordinators to cover that. But the key here is that we really have designed this to be where our farmers go through our whole farm planning programs. They have online resources to help support as they move through. And now they have a mentoring opportunity. They can submit an application to attach themselves to a mentor in their community, to really kind of rethread those ties that a lot of beginning farmers are looking for to help support their farm development. So we've been really excited about this. It takes time. It's definitely a labor of love, but we've had a lot of good feedback and a lot of good support to continue the mentoring. So just some themes that kind of help you kind of think like, well, okay, how do you really do this? What does it look like? And then I have some strategies, and we'll wrap up here. But we had each of the whole farm planning teams, while they had very site-specific programs, they did have a lot of commonality. And so I wanted to recognize that. Each of the programs had used, on average, 4 of the 5 modules, and if not all 5 at all times, but they used them in maybe slightly different ways. Different worksheets were used, and we actually monitored that, if you will. We've had a curriculum evaluation process, and that's been very helpful to revise our modules and how best they can be, used in practice. We also, each of the programs may have differing lengths of time. We've had courses that lasted 6 weeks. We've had one course that lasted 18 weeks. But the key here wasn't so much that it could be used in different time spans, but it was really a mix of face-to-face experiential work in the classroom, in the field. But there was a lot of, if you will, direct instruction that was provided through the coalition members themselves. So a lot of, if you will, the coalition is having as the expertise, and experts are coming from farmers, are coming from service providers in different agencies, and they're coming together to provide that instruction. And that instruction was also online. One of our programs had a mix of online instruction and workshop and field work. So they were quite creative and very ambitious, but they really pulled it off very well. What's really key, I think all of the groups really focus on cohort development. Something I think you all probably know, that a lot of beginning farmers really want to be together and work together and learn from each other. And so I think a really good example of that is the Certified Farm Seeker program, really drawing on the young farm bureau committees in certain counties. I mean, these are folks who are working together in a variety of ways, and to continue to learn from each other is pretty essential. And so I think that cohort development has taken on very uniquely in each of the programs, but it's been the common theme. Also, as I mentioned, the coalition itself has been the service provider network. So while the teams put the programs in practice, they have the coalition to draw upon for additional service provider support. So additional training, additional instruction. So we're not just, here's a program, go do it. Here's a program, go do it. But here you have a network to work with. So that was definitely a common theme. And as I mentioned, the online learning was supportive learning throughout the process and used as they see fit. And the mentor network was always as an option for those next steps for beginning farmers. And the mentees who are now who are working with mentors have all gone through our programs. So some other themes I just wanted to emphasize was our farmer mentor networking is really networking. It's not an economic relationship. We do not create apprenticeships or internships. That is up to farmers to decide how they want to work together. We provide training for the mentees, and we also provide training for the mentors. We have curriculum for the mentors that really help them walk through how to be a mentor, how to work with beginning farmers. If they clearly have an interest, if they've been recruited and agreed to do it, but we help them along the way. And our farm mentor coordinators are the key success for that. Opportunities for service providers was just as important as it is for working with the farmers directly, and I just think that's so essential. As we work about the big picture here with beginning farmer program development, we need to think about how to help service providers do their work well by working with beginning farmers at the same time. And so it's definitely both sides of the coin. And we've been learning over time here in our program that we have a lot of emergent issues and needs to focus on. And I just wanted to mention two of them that definitely have percolated through our strategic planning processes, which is truly focus on land transitions. How do we help farmers in Virginia transition from one farm business to the next? And that's a national issue, and we need to have an answer for it. And it's a hard one. It's almost the box that's too hard to click, as one of my colleagues in Kentucky used to say. But I think it's definitely an issue we have to put energy into. And then we are clearly concerned about how to have best management practices for our new entry growers and producers, so they are maintaining good practices in the future. So since they're the next generation, we want to make sure that there's good production going on. So lessons and strategies, really quickly, and we'll get into some Q&A, is we really believe in, I think, in our program, working together for that common agenda, which is to support beginning farmers and ranchers through whole farm planning program development. There's less competition and more collaboration. And so if we focus on that, then I think the coalition will be successful, and it has been. So another lesson that we've learned is to really focus on communication and networking and strategic planning. We've done that through each of our coalition meetings. I think we can do more of that, and that requires, thinking creatively about how we're all very busy people. How can we continue to network without taking on more time from our busy lives, but yet to continue to work on that common agenda? I think what's really key is to co-create together as a coalition. We did a needs assessment, something I didn't even get into, which we actually did a statewide assessment through a survey and a focus group, a series of focus groups with the development of a survey instrument through the coalition. We vetted that. We created that together through a very specific research process. We co-created our curriculum, and then we have then implemented our programming, and to do that, we've tried to develop shared metrics of what is success for our programs. Which means we had to evaluate. We've been evaluating our programs, we've been evaluating the curriculum, and we're continuing to think about that coalition model, and to then think about evaluating that, and not just as a formative evaluation, but as a ongoing developmental evaluation. And accountability. You can't have success without accountability, and that means providing different working groups and steering committees that have representation of farmers and service providers. And we do have a steering committee who represent farmers and service providers. We have multiple working groups for the curriculum. We have agenda, coalition meeting agenda groups, and we work together. And it's a lot of time and energy, but I think it pays off, and I think that accountability is what keeps us working together. So next steps, and just really briefly, we have received some funding through Virginia Tech and Cooperative Extension through an internal grant here to provide ongoing train the trainer programming for our coalition. So using our whole farm planning curriculum with each other, so to continue to train each other as service providers. We also are planning for ongoing whole farm planning programs. Many of those teams that you saw on the slides are actually going to be providing programming beyond the life of the grant, and we're trying to think about strategically providing that communication across the state so farmers know where those programs will exist. We also will be continuing our mentoring in two of the regions, our northern region and our central region, and we will be putting on an assessment of our model, our coalition model, through a collective impact framework. So those of you who are familiar with collective impact, essentially is to look at that common agenda for multi-organizational work that has a common goal and shared metrics to move forward. And that's going to be what we're going to be focusing on in the next year plus. And I think we have our work cut out for us, but I'm excited, and I'm happy to recognize some references here, but mostly to acknowledge all of our coalition members, our steering committee, our management team, and many, many other folks who've been the heart and soul of this work. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and to acknowledge the USDA and our grant to help us put on this programming. And I know I've talked quite a bit, and I apologize, but I would be happy to take on questions and any other points of interest from the group.
Thank you very much, Kim. That was absolutely excellent, and I think everyone is pretty impressed with the amount of detail your project is getting into, as well as your presentation today. Just for everyone in the audience, as Jeff alluded to at the beginning, you can either type into the question box your question, and I will get that question announced as soon as we get to it, or you can click the little hand raise button if you have a microphone and you'd rather speak your question aloud, and I can unmute you when we get to your question. So you have two ways of, if there's anything, whether it's a comment, question, or other, we'll just go in order as they come in. So we actually have one question already, Kim, and that is from Tom Welsh, and the question is, what role does Farm Credit of Virginia have in your coalition, if at all?
Excellent question. Happy to answer that. Farm Credit has actually been part of the coalition from the very early stages, and we have representatives in Farm Credit through Betty Brandt and John Day as coalition representatives. Betty Brandt has also participated in the review of the modules, and specifically helping us think about how the farm business and farm credit issues are actually being addressed for new entry producers. So we've been very thankful for that connection. And Betty also serves as a representative on our coalition planning group or committee. And I'm just so thankful for she's a wonderful person, and John has been great to also work with in the northern Piedmont area.
Excellent, excellent. We just had one more question come in. The next question is, how can I access the WFPC?
The WFPC.
Whole farm
Planning curriculum. Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you. The curriculum.
Thanks,
thank
Jeff.
You. Yes, right now the curriculum is in a stage of editing and almost publication. We have, like I said, the 5 modules. 2 of the modules have been peer-reviewed and are in the final stages of editing through our communications department here at Virginia Tech. And the business and marketing modules have just been peer-reviewed, complete, and are just beginning to get edited. So, and then the Sustainable Farming Practices one will be shortly following. So what I'm saying is that at any time, if folks are interested in the curriculum, what we do is ask that you send me an email, and I can send you a module. I usually start one module at a time so people can review it and utilize it as they see fit. But we will be publishing this on the Virginia Cooperative Extension website, as well as through our own Beginning Farmer website, so people can have a PDF download-friendly versions. We won't have all the resources downloadable because those are clearly going to be hot links, but at least you can have the module text that will be the heart of that work. So this is public funding. These are public resources, and so we want to make this as accessible as possible. So the current answer is, if you want it now, you can just let me know, and if you want to wait until it's got the fancy sheen on it from our communications office, you can wait until then as well. But they're looking pretty good. They actually look pretty. They're in good formatting stage. But I just know how the CALS communication folks will have that final stamp of approval and formatting.
Excellent, thanks. We just have another question come in. Next one is, if a beginning farmer program wants to learn from your experience and protocols around mentoring, how best can they gain access to that?
Great question. I would always encourage folks to, so from a farmer's perspective, we have an application process through our website. You can get there and we facilitate those questions. I know a lot of the whole farm planning teams will often get the question and they will shoot the interest to one of the farm mentor coordinators. So they're really, the coordinators are the ones who are facilitating that. Now, if you're from a service provider's perspective want to know how we do this, we are actually been talking about we need to write about this. We need to get an article out and we need to share that information. So we're not there yet. We're kind of busy with some other things, but we're hoping to put down our best practices and get that out in either Journal of Extension or other means. We do have some presentation slides that we've used to share what we've been doing, but the best way for farmers to connect is through directly through our farm mentor coordinators. But anyone at any time, they're always welcome to contact me, and if I don't have the right answer, I will find the right person for
it. Super, thanks. And then, as you can imagine, questions are rolling in. We have another one. Next one is, can you share your mentor training agenda and/or program with others?
Yes, we can. We haven't. Yes, we can share with you our curriculum that we use. The New England Small Farm Institute has published curriculum for mentors, and that's actually on our website currently, and that's just a click away. And we have used a database. We've used our database for the mentor profiles, which those aren't public. We do honor the privacy of our mentors and mentees, and so what we can do is, if you wanted to know more about the protocol, you can perhaps talk to any one of myself or our mentor coordinators. Like I said, we haven't written that up yet. We haven't written the protocol in a publishable way. And what I'm hearing maybe is we need to do that sooner than later. And happy to do it. And I think there's not a one-size-fits-all for that programming. I think mentoring is really a challenge. It's also pretty essential, but I think peer learning is really important. And I think that paraprofessional model is pretty important to think about how mentors who live in their community, who can provide training to new farmers as the mentees, but how do we help them do that? So it's not just here, go work on someone's farm, it's here's a cohort of people coming together. So we focus on recruitment, we also focus on social networking opportunities, but we also focus on one-on-one matching and facilitation between two entities. So our mentor coordinators do a lot of that hard work. So it's kind of three-tiered in that way. But we will get that out. We'll get that protocol out to folks to be continued.
Excellent. Another one we have is kind of a two-parter. Do you have some Latino farmers involved, and if so, how do you outreach them?
Great question. We do have, through our program evaluations, we have we have Latino farmers. We have the recruitment has been really through the program themselves. We reach out as much as possible through the network itself, the coalition, and I would say that we have Latino farmers all throughout Virginia, and there's going to be certain communities that have more Latino farmers than not. But I know our southeastern side of the state has typically shown more limited resource minority farmer participation. And Virginia State University, I want to acknowledge their work with both Latino and African American farmers, and I think they've done a really good job of outreaching through the coalition. So we want to continue to support that effort.
Excellent. I guess there's no more remaining questions out there, but we'll leave it open here for a moment or two more to make sure that there's any additional comments or questions you folks have as we're just going over the end of the hour period here. And I'll use this time also to thank again everyone for not only attending today, but also Kim for presenting, obviously, and And I hope everyone benefited from the amount of information and her experiences with their coalition and project that they've been undergoing and obviously been highly successful with.
Well, I just want to take a quick moment to thank both Chad and Jeff. They've been a pleasure to work with, and also want to acknowledge the support of the coalition partners for this work. So it's definitely a team effort.
Excellent. All right. There will be a very short survey at the end of this that'll pop up in your browser at the end of this webinar. Thank you all for attending. Kim and Chad, there is a message for you in the chat box. Excellent. And I will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected.